but it's very important you can know the different sections that apply. So for a PLC, we're looking at section 1011, and that basically says that the PLC shall have the capacity to do any act or thing stated in their object set out in its memorandum. So I think that's very similar to what is contained in, that's very similar to the wording contained in 973, okay? Now, the capacity of a PLC extends to doing any act or thing that appears to be requisite, advantageous, or incidental to, or facilitates the attainment of the object, of that object. That's slightly different to a DAC. So what that is effectively allowing in is ancillary objects are also covered. So that, independent objects clause, which you may remember we're going to come to, that now is part of the legislation around a PLC. So they can do what's stated in the objects clause, and they can do anything that is requisite, advantageous, incidental to, or facilitates the attainment of that object. So they've got a slightly wider ambit of control. Now, then in 102, then it's similar to 973, the fact that it says that it doesn't, if a director acts outside the objects clause of a PLC, that doesn't invalidate it. And again, 103 allows for the PLC to alter its objects clause by special resolution, obviously to cover in and encapsulate maybe what the director did. And then the main thing to understand, and this is extremely important, is a party to a transaction with a PLC is not bound to inquire as to whether it is permitted by the PLC's object. That is extremely important, because the problem that used to happen under the very old version of the ultra vires rule was, because memorandums and articles of association were public documents, the assumption was that you could look them up, see what the objects of the company was, and therefore you knew the limitations under which the director should be acting. Okay, now that was obviously putting a heavy onus on a third party to, if you want, check before entering into contracts. That has got watered down, and now by cases, and now it's contained in the 2014 Act. And the 2014 Act says for both the DAC and the PLC that when you're in, because they still have object clauses, that when you're engaging in contracts with them, a third party is not under a duty to check their objects clause to make sure that whatever you're doing with the company is intra vires, is not ultra vires. Are we all okay? Very important you understand the legislation. And this is what makes this area so examinable, is the huge big changes that are being brought about in the Act. Section 38 in relation to limited companies has really wiped out ultra vires and has an unlimited capacity for limited companies. Ultra vires is still alive in a modified form for DACs and for PLCs, and the really important thing to remember is that a third party is not under an obligation to check out a DAC's object clause or a PLC's objects clause to see whatever they're doing with the company is it intra vires. Everyone got that in their head? Okay, now we're going to move on. We're not going to look